If this is new to you, you start to fully understand. Before you can implement, you have to understand. So, what is strategy and how should I apply it to my business specifically? How should I apply it to me as an individual? Because I also consider the person a brand.
Welcome back to today's episode of Digital Dominance. Do you ever feel like you always have your head down, grinding away day after day, only to look up and see that you haven't made much progress? Very often it's because the things we are spending time on are not important, even though they may be urgent. It's a frustrating place to be, and the question is, how do you move past that? So to help us with that question, I've invited the impact influencer, Jimmy Newson, to discuss business growth, getting unstuck, and long-term thinking. So before we dive in, I wanted to give you a glimpse into Jimmy's impressive background. Jimmy Newson, also known as the Impact Influencer, is a business strategy consultant and the founder of Moving Forward Small Business. He specializes in empowering small businesses and entrepreneurs with practical advice. But Jimmy is more than just a consultant. He's a contributor at entrepreneur.com, and he serves on boards for organizations like the New York Marketing Association. Jimmy has been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Adweek, and other publications. And as an international speaker, he has trained thousands of professionals across the globe. So please help me welcome my guest today, Jimmy Newson. Welcome to the show, Jimmy.
Jeffro, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited and I can't wait to get into some fun with you.
Definitely, because this stuff is fun and it matters. So let's jump right in. I'm excited, like I said, because as business owners, we've all found ourselves caught up in the day-to-day. Then we feel frustrated that we're working in the business and not on it. But of course, we have to keep the business running. So we keep running on the hamster wheel. Now, you bring a unique vantage point because you're able to speak about the high-level context and strategy, which is an important starting point, but you also bring the practical tips and tools to help people make progress with that strategy. So what would you say to the business owners who are just so ready to make progress that they seem to want to skip past the strategy piece and just jump right into the next tactic?
Yeah, and it'll take a step back. And the problem is, one, when small businesses hear strategy and vision and mission, they think, oh, that's for big businesses. And at the end of the day, yes, it is, but it's also for small businesses. The problem is there's no immediate return on investment, and that always causes them to go, "This is not that important now. I'll do it later." But what they don't realize is that is setting the foundation to grow faster, get there faster when you start to expand and bring on your first hire or bring on your first virtual assistant or whatever. It allows you to not have to micromanage, and it allows you to start to step back. And when we talk about this and we teach it, we try to look at the big strategy, and then we also try to stick in a few quick wins, so you feel that, oh, that's nice, okay, and you get excited to want to do it again. So it's a delicate dance, a delicate balance to go, let's start focusing on the big wins, but how can we leverage some of that right now for a quick win so we don't feel like it's not that important for us.
That makes sense. I mean, kind of having that layered approach so that you stick with it, because otherwise you don't want people to quit. Uh, at what point would you recommend a business owner actually makes a business plan, for example?
Great question. And the problem that most don't is a huge issue for us when we talk about the failure rate being 7 out of 10 failures in 10 years and to some point 5 years. The business plan, there's two aspects. There's the business plan and there's the business strategy, and they work hand in hand with each other. The business plan is the roadmap to get from point A to point B. The strategy is the process to stay on the track. So we make it to point B. And the strategy gives us guidelines. It almost adds rails. It adds like training wheels to the bike. So we stay up and we stay going forward, and we're kind of on that track. And you really, at any point, you should, one, create a business plan as soon as possible. And then second, you should always be updating that business plan at least quarterly, because the industry is changing, especially depending on your industry. And you look at technology and the fact that every business should be looking at some level of a digital transformation, meaning leveraging more technology in their business than ever before. And for a small business, that's probably our best opportunity for growth and also to beat out bigger competitors. So understanding that a business plan is extremely vital. You should be doing a business plan yesterday.
And that makes sense. So you mentioned business plan versus business strategy, right? The strategy kind of keeps you following the plan, but to kind of make that more concrete, can you give us an example with like a lemonade stand business? What would the business plan be versus the strategy?
Sure, the business plan would be, we're going to start a business. Here's our target audience. Here's the product. Here's how we're going to sell it. Hell, here's the different types of products that we can create within that business plan. Here are the financial projections. And this is where we should be in 5 years. So that's the business plan. The strategy on the other side is, well, what do we have available to us that we can use to execute on this business plan? What partnerships can we possibly go after? What are some unique opportunities that we can use to understand our competitive landscape and use that to our advantage to beat out our competition? And then the most important part of a business strategy is alignment. The most reason that the reason that most business plans fail is not because it's really because of alignment and execution. If we don't make somebody accountable for for those plans, then there's no opportunity to determine when are we winning and when are we not winning, when are we losing. And that's where the strategy comes in and goes, all right, here's how we behave. So you talk about purpose. So part of the strategy is purpose. Why are we doing this? And then the mission is, well, how do we do it? And then we add another element in that, which is called values. And the values go, how do we behave so we know when we're not behaving properly? And that's for us internally, but also for those externally, like customers. Everybody has to operate from the same values, and that becomes part of your strategy. And when you've got that, now you can start to focus on, okay, if the vision is to be all the way down the road, what do we have to do to get there? How should we behave? And what should be the top 2 to 3 things that we focus on for the year? And now everything else doesn't matter. If it doesn't align in that very structured framework, even though it could be an amazing idea, it is not something we can do right now because we don't have the resources, and that's where the alignment comes in. If we don't, we need to align it with someone. We need to make someone accountable. And if we have no one to be accountable to that because it doesn't fit, it doesn't fly. It's a great idea. We table it until it makes sense.
I like that. Thank you for that example. I think, so the business plan is more of the what, and the strategy is more of the how we implement. Okay. So, I mean, you touched on a couple of things sometimes where people get stuck. But when you're working with entrepreneurs, what are some of the roadblocks that seem to come up over and over again?
Um, it usually it's not having a big picture of where we're trying to go. It's not having the focus. And again, that's where the vision to me is probably, after creating the business plan, the most important thing you could ever create. Because some people don't like to, let's just take audience. When I talk to a new potential client and I go, who's your audience? They go, everybody should be using my product. First of all, I want to turn tail and run in the opposite direction because I'm not sure if I even have the energy to explain why that's not right. You know, but but when I tell them they have to pick a direction, I can see the fear. But what about the other people that I can serve? And I'm like, here's the thing. You've got 1,800 Johns and 1,700 Susans and 1,500 Mikes. Which one is your best customer on the best day? Mike's. Wouldn't you rather cater to 100,000 Mikes and increase your probability of closing them than focusing on those that have a less option to close? And I go, and so what that doesn't mean you're not going to get the Susans and the other one. It just means that we're going to focus here. And the more we focus here, if we're at the end of the day, if we can help more of them, we're going to get more income. And just because as a byproduct, we're going to still pick up the other 2 sections. So we're never eliminating them. We're just focusing more. And so again, so that becomes that focus area, and trying to get them to focus and say no more than yes is always the biggest problem.
Yeah, because it's almost counterintuitive. You think, well, I don't want to shrink my potential client base, right? But at the same time, if you know who you're talking to, you're going to have a better engagement rate, better conversion rate, and ultimately actually expand your business, even though you've focused, like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's usually the hardest part to go, look, this is a good thing. And a good example for that is I had a landing page I've created once, and they usually say a good landing page can convert at about 25, possibly 30%. That means for every 10 people, 3 people convert. I had a landing page that was converting at close to 70%. And there was a number of reasons. So, and I'll explain that. One, it was a warm audience, so it came through a source that had the trust of the audience, and then I also understood the audience. So I was able to put the proper language in place. I was able to make sure that I understood what their particular pain points were. And so understanding and knowing all that information allowed me to focus on, well, what one product do I want to talk about over 5 or 6 of my offerings that most entrepreneurs go, I can do this and I can do that and I can do this. And you're going, one thing, let's lock in. And does this align back with our business strategy? If our objective is to raise a certain amount of money over a certain period of time, if you're using money, we call that a lagging indicator, but we want what is a leading indicator, which allows us to control the direction. So now we're going to leverage a product that's the leader that's going to help us get to the lagging, which is the amount of revenue we want to generate at a specific time.
Yeah. Well, I like also that you clarified, the warm traffic is obviously going to get you a higher conversion rate. So if you've got people only coming from a particular newsletter they're subscribed to, of course, it makes sense they're going to convert at a higher rate than just putting it in front of a cold audience and sending anyone and everyone there, because they're not in that same place or that mindset, or don't have those needs. And so that's another big part of it, is understanding who you're talking to, where they're coming from, and what stage they're at in the buyer journey too, because obviously that changes how you talk to them. So what would you say to an owner who says they have no time or money to invest in expanding or fixing their business like this?
You want the hard answer? If they don't have the financial resources, they're going to have to put in the blood, sweat, and tears. There is no way around the fact that sometimes it's better to stop and pause. And I think that's the hardest part for entrepreneurs. I'm not moving, nothing's getting done. This here, not moving, is as powerful as you doing stuff. Like you said at the very beginning, I've been working all day, I've been working all week, I've been working all month, I've been working all year, and I feel nothing's getting done. And that's when you're not using this. You're just thinking, I just have to be busy. You have to step back and really go, what am I trying to achieve here? What is the long-term game? Is the unsexy thing to do, but if you want to grow a business, you're going to have to start thinking that way. So now you got to go, where can I go to get access to this training, at this level, to understand, so I can level myself up. Because there's a difference between going from a zero to $100,000 and $100,000 to $500,000 to $1 million, whatnot. Those are stages. And at each one of those stages, it requires a different mindset. It requires a different set of skills. So where are you? And now you need to start to do some research and go, what do I not know, so I can step to that next level? And I'm either going to have to do the work myself, or do it in stages where I do this thing called the $10,000 an hour document I got from a guy named Perry Marshall. And he wrote this, so you know him. So he wrote this 10,000. He wrote the 80/20 sales and marketing book, and in it has a $10,000 document. So I got his permission to teach that because I was just like, this is hot. And it talks about going from $10 an hour to 100 to 1,000 to 10,000. So another strategy could be, let me see what I'm doing in these 4 categories and start to move my way over. And as I move over, hire somebody, whether it's a VA or whatnot, to start taking over those lower level things and making sure that what you're doing has a tie back to revenue. So there's money coming in as you're starting to go, so you can get things off your plate, but you got revenue coming in as you move over and over. Of course, that's a strategic, because you're going to have to be strategic about it, but there are options. But the bottom line is, the way I built my business is I had to get in and do all this stuff. And then at some point I had to go, now I need to stop doing all this stuff. I need to elevate myself to this next level. I have to go into managerial mode. I have to then go into C-level exec mode, because even though we're small business owners, we're still executives. If we want to grow a business and one day be able to sell it, if that is or is not your objective, we have to run it like we're going to sell it, and we have to. And I used to think, the CEO becomes a small business owner, but it's actually the opposite. I learned from one of my mentors and board advisors is the small business owner has to elevate to a CEO of his own business.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of good stuff there that you just touched on, and we could go in so many different directions. There's a lyric that I think of that made me think of from a band called Thrice, and it says, "Motion isn't meaning; it's just another drug." Right? So we're busy in our businesses all day, every day, like, oh, I should fix this thing, but it doesn't actually have an impact on the business. It could have waited, right? You could have done something else. So sometimes we do productive procrastination where we're like, instead of doing the thing we know is important, we don't want to do it. We go do something else that I could have delegated or something. And so this goes back to having that business plan and business strategy, right? Because if you're checking in on that periodically, then you'll be able to self-correct and be like, oh, okay, this is why I'm not moving forward. I forgot about this part of my strategy that I am not implementing right now. And so by doing that, you can take those steps like you were talking about to make yourself into the person who's capable of reaching that next level, or understanding how to hire the person who's going to do those tasks or whatever it might be. But having that plan instead of just kind of blindly bouncing around is the only way you're ever going to move forward and get to those bigger goals.
Absolutely. And I put myself, and I say put yourself in the fire. I do it all the time. I put myself in the fire when I know there's something I need to do and I'm feeling a little reluctant to want to do it. I'll schedule meetings in times that I definitely hate doing meetings. I have certain things on my wall to remind me of things. So I have the $10,000 an hour document because,
Mhm.
again, I fall victim to it still to this day. But the difference is I'm aware when I'm messing up.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, I'm just doing this because I want to. And so I don't care. And then the rest of the time I'm going, all right, I shouldn't be doing this. Let me get back on track. And
Yeah.
so I think that self-awareness is usually the most important aspect. So you don't always have to be, you can't be 100% all the
Right.
time. It's just virtually impossible. So I'm not asking anybody listening today to try to achieve that. That's like perfection. There's no such thing. But to be aware of it will make you better at what you're doing. And some of this stuff will start to become second nature for you,
Right.
an extreme habit.
Yeah, and as you, yeah, obviously, like you said, we're all human. So, what can you do to set yourself up for success, knowing your own limitations and shortcomings and tendencies, right? So, whether that's putting some on the wall that you see it every day, or you have your thing that you read every morning before you start work, or whatever it is that gets you past those roadblocks, that's going to be the most effective thing for you.
I think starting to invest, whether it's time, energy, or money, into strategy, some level of strategy, something. So if this is new to you, you start to fully understand. Before you can implement, you have to understand. So, what is strategy and how should I apply it to my business specifically? How should I apply it to me as an individual? Because I also consider the person a brand. As the founder, the CEO, there's two entities here. There's the business and there's you, and you can apply it to both. So, looking even if you just go to Google and just start typing in business strategy for my industry, my business, just so you can start to think about what does strategy mean and what should it mean to me. That I think that would be the first step. And then once you do, you start to investigate and go into that. Start looking for tools that can help you with strategy and business planning. And we have programming for both of those things. And that was the thing for my organization where I realized that's how we different from our competition. And we're going up against some massive players. Like, we help small businesses. Okay. So hence the word moving forward, small business. But if you think about it, American Express has Small Business Saturday, and Verizon has some form of a small business program. And these are mega giants. And I have conversations with them on a regular, but they're still massive. They can outspin me, they can out support me, they can outdo everything. But there's one thing that they don't do that we do, and that's support a small business with their actual strategy, because that takes time and energy. And so that's what we realized. That's when we started to double down on Strategy is the element. Most people don't have a digital marketing problem. They don't have a finance problem. They don't have a human resources problem. They have a strategy problem. And they just have to address any of those elements that I mentioned, but they're based on the fact, well, why should we be doing it? Well, the strategy is going to tell you why.
Yeah, I think a lot of people fall into the trap of if you build it, they will come. Like, well, I've got the best service in town. Why wouldn't they just hire me? It's like, well, obviously, it doesn't work that way. Any endeavor or any realm of life. So, yeah, I like that. The
Mm-hmm.
strategy kind of helps keep you grounded. And I was going to ask this as well. When you tell someone to start thinking bigger, right? A small business owner, and they're like, okay, I want to make $100 million next year. Okay, we got to stay grounded too, right? Like it's good to have big
How?
goals, but how do we get there?
Yep, exactly. And then the funny thing, you said that. I had a colleague of mine say that as well, but she said 300 million. And I said to her, how? And she got offended. Like I didn't believe she could do it. And I had to tell her, I go, look, first of all, I am not an emotional guy. I'm very logical. So that, I got that geekiness about me that, and I go, and two, I'm asking in regards to not, I don't believe you can do it. I'm literally asking you, how? What's the plan? What is the roadmap? I'm not saying you can't do it. So show it to me. And if you can't show that, and not even that you don't hit it, it's at least if you have a plan to move towards it and it's realistic and you don't hit it, you still have to be closer than you were today.
Right. But if you don't have any plan, then it's just a dream, right? And you're not going to get
Yeah,
there.
and if you can't articulate, because you're going to need people, you're going to need processes, you're going to need teams, you're going to need partners.
Hmm.
And so what is your process, and what is your SOPs? What is your plan to incorporate all of that? Our vision is to save 1 million businesses from failure by 2050, leveraging innovation, technology, and strategy. And I've had people go, really, right? And then I go, here's how we're planning on doing. And they go, oh, that kind of makes sense. I go, yes. I go, I have to practice what I preach, but we also have to think about, well, how? And that was something that my board challenged me on. And I was frustrated because, when you put on the fire, and you feel like people are doubting you, and you take it personally. And I came to the point where I go, they're asking legitimate questions. How? I need to answer this, or else how can I earn their trust so they can help me on this process? And that's where purpose, vision, mission, strategy comes into play. It's not really for you. It's for the support system that is going to be built because of this road that you've created. That everybody goes, "Ooh, I'd like to go there with you."
Yeah, no, I love that. And I hope everybody's taking notes and deciding, I got to go work on my business plan or think about a strategy or, before New Year's resolutions, how am I going to actually make this stuff happen? Because it's not just your business, it's any goal like that. You got to map it out. So we're talking about big goals, but I want to, before we end, bring it back a little closer to home. You've talked before about, don't underestimate what you have in your backyard. So can you give an example of what that means for a business from a practical perspective?
Yeah. And what that means, that you probably know people already, or you're 2 degrees away from the person that you actually need to be talking to. But the first step is, if when you got a great purpose, vision, mission, and values, people buy. And Wistia said it best. If you want to inspire and never run out of things to market on, don't market on your products and service. Market on your purpose, vision, and mission, because that brings a human element in. And so, with that, when you got a very memorable and very succinct purpose, vision, and mission, it's easier for others to talk on your behalf without you ever being in the room. And when they're able to do that, there's an extension of you now that did not exist before. And so you leverage that, and that's how you start to get people in your own backyard, because they now have a better understanding of what you do and who you help. Okay. And so if you do a horrible job, when I asked you what do you do, and you take 2 to 5 minutes to fumble over what you actually do, that and you do that every time, now you got 20 people that have 18 different ideas of what they think you do. And that doesn't allow you to tap into the people that are in your current network, that are around you, that know you best, that will probably help you before anybody else will. So the key here is to work that audience first. And if I understand what our vision, purpose, vision, mission, and I'm sorry to have to keep saying this, ladies and gentlemen, but that's because it's that important. They know what you need because it's very clear what you're trying to do. And even if they don't get it right, they're usually pretty close. The most of my calls lately are always, I think you do this. I got somebody to meet, and I'll be like, wow, good intro, because they get it. And it's not like I'm sure you've probably been on calls where you're like, why am I even on this call? I don't even, and the guy's like, well, they told me you did this. And you're like, I don't even do nothing similar to that. And and as you get busy, our biggest asset is our time. And so we have to do a better job of managing it. And again, that's purpose, vision, mission affects so much of what helps us grow as professionals and as a business.
Yeah. And I hope you guys take that to heart. It's not just for the big businesses. Even if you're a solopreneur right now, you can start by making that business plan. So, Jimmy, this has been a great conversation. I know we could talk about this for hours because there's a lot of stuff here, but I appreciate you sharing your wisdom. So guys, go check out Jimmy's website at movingforwardsmallbusiness.com. Look into the different boot camps and courses that he has available. Jimmy, do you have any final thoughts on what you wanted to leave us with?
Absolutely. Again, our vision is to be the number one strategic support system for small businesses, entrepreneurs, and professionals globally. And then our mission is to save 1 million businesses from failure, leveraging innovation, technology, and strategy. That's the how to the what. Okay. And so we created a membership which allows us to do this. And we leverage a lot of technology. And a lot of these tools are free, and these are some pretty sophisticated tools. When we talk about business strategy, we leverage a tool called Cascade. And we were able to now set that tool up under us on behalf of our members. Again, now that's how we track. We've helped 1 million businesses by 2050. Again, so that becomes part of our whole overall mechanism. So if anyone's interested in checking out membership, we have the strategy, alignment, and execution membership. Very creative name. Okay. And we have monthly and yearly services for that. And every month we do a 4-part framework that focuses on one topic that should be relevant to all the businesses in our member base. And we're doing a 25% off if anybody wants to do it here that's listening to the podcast. They just have to use code DDP25. And they'll get access to the membership. And there's a 30-day free trial. We might even, by the time this airs, we might even have a 14-day free trial. So we'll see what happens, but you'll still get your discount on it if they decide to take it. And I think at the end of the day, this could be an option for them when they don't have the money to hire a consultant at anywhere from $200 to $500 an hour to come up with this big strategy thinking. It just means that either they got to put in the work or they can put somebody else from their team into the program and let them start to understand this. And you should have some level of understanding inside of the organization. Even with me as a consultant, I still need a point of contact in all of the businesses that I work with. And it's great if they have some level of understanding, because then it just makes a seamless opportunity for us to work together, and then they pass the knowledge on to those that need it.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a great resource, guys. So check it out. And thank you, Jimmy, for that discount code. Thanks again, Jimmy, for being on the show. Thanks to all you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.